So welcome back to another SUPboarder video. Yes, it's that time of year again. It's 2021 equipment we are now looking at. It's just the start of September, but Aqua Marina have launched their new range of inflatable paddleboards. And in this video, we're going to give you an overview looking at the changes of the range and what boards you should be looking out for in 2021. Now, Aqua Marina have got tens and thousands of you on the water over the last few years, and they definitely do make more cheaper to moderately priced paddleboards, but a wide range of paddleboards from very much your beginner all-round paddleboards to your more advanced race boards. They have definitely improved from 2020, better features, better fittings on the board, the better overall package is a better quality, better bags, better pumps, etc. But the price points are very much still the same. The other big change, which we're going to speak about in more detail, is the sizings of their board. There's a lot more boards in better sizes now that are going to get you on the water, especially as a first-time paddler and for heavier weighted paddlers. So in this video, we'll be looking at the general changes they've done in 2021. We won't be doing any standalone reviews in this actual video of a standalone board, but if you do think there's a board that you would like to find out more from us, please let us know in the comment section which boards would you like to see have a standalone SUPboarder review. So having a little overall look at the range, they still have their all-round range of boards sitting at the cheaper price point. They still have their all-round advanced range of boards, which are very similar to the all-round range of boards, but they come with better features and fittings on the boards, and they cost a little bit more. And then they move into their touring shapes and their race shapes, and they still have got their surfing and their multi-person SUPs, but we're not going to be looking at in this review because they are pretty much the same shape. They have done some upgrades to the package, but the boards are very much the same. So first off, let's look at the all-round range of boards. Last year they made 3 boards in these sizes. This year they make 4 boards in the all-round range. The really great thing they've done for this year is they've increased the width of these boards. So now you can get a 31, 32, a 33 wide board, the monster board, and it's a fairly big voluminous board. So if you're a heavier paddler, you don't have to go and spend a lot more money. You can still get a really competitively priced board from a main brand that has got a nice amount of width to it, nice and stable. It's going to be able to take a lot of weight or multi-people. Maybe it's great for the family, kids, or if you want to get into SUP fishing but you can't spend very much, there is that bigger monster board in that range. A few years ago, this range, they were all sitting around 30 wide, which is good for the lighter paddlers, sub sort of 75 kilograms. But if you're getting into the sport and you weigh 85, 95, 100 kilograms, using those narrow base boards is really, really hard. And Aqua Marina didn't have anything in that range so that would sit and suit those people at that price point. But now they do, which is a really good move and great to see. Other things that they've changed in 2021, the graphics are a lot better in that all-round range, definitely a lot more eye-catching. The construction is the same as the more expensive boards. You do get a much better backpack. All of the boards have got better backpacks this year. They all come with zipped backpacks opposed to the sort of foldable stuff sack that you used to get a few years ago. They're very much better at keeping the water in the bag, so if you're putting it in the back of the car, it doesn't just seep out through all of the gaps like the old backpack used to. So they all come with a better backpack, and it's the same backpack that comes with the other boards. The pump is better than last year's pump. It's a double action pump, so it pumps on the upstroke and on the downstroke, and then you've got like a valve you release at the back of the pump to just pump on the downstroke when the pumping starts to get too much. They've upgraded the pressure gauge this year, so it's a better looking and a better working pressure gauge, and it still has an inflate and deflate setting on that pump. They also say they've increased the efficiency of that pump by 20%. Now, we haven't actually tested it off the back of an older pump yet, but maybe that's something we'll be looking at doing in the future. Last year's all-round boards had an okay deck pad, but it was very basic. There wasn't really much feature or grip to it at all. This year they've increased the EVA deck pad with slight diamond grooving in it. It does give you a little bit more padding and it makes it a little bit softer on your feet. Those bigger boards, the Fusion 1010 and the Monster 12 foot being 32 and 33 wide, are going to be great for heavier people getting into the sport first time. Good price points, still 500 euros for the monster board. That is a big board that's going to get a lot of people on the water this year. Now looking at the all-round advanced range of boards, they've got some similar sizes to the all-round range, and definitely a lot of you are going to be comparing the two ranges to try and find out what board is best for you. The biggest difference with the Allround advanced range of boards is you get a better pump, you get much better fittings, and the board itself is more refined than the more basic Allround range of board. They are sitting very much at the same price as last year's 2020 boards. You are getting a better package. If you can afford to go for the advanced Allround range, I would strongly recommend it for a few reasons. One is the styling of the board is a little bit nicer, a little bit more refined again. The deck pad, the EVA deck pad, is much grippier and much more comfortable to stand on. More traditionally, like you would find on way more expensive brands on the market. It's got a kick pad, which is great for just getting yourself into maybe doing step turn maneuvers or getting into surf. The pump it comes with is Aqua Marina's version 2 pump. It's a much better quality pump than the cheaper version 1. It's a bigger pump, it pumps more air in, it's got better handles, better gauge, it's easier to release onto the one-way or two-way setting, and it's got better foot pegs. It's generally a much better pump, and I would really recommend, if you can afford to go for that upgrade, you will be thanking you that you did after a few sessions using it, just by using the pump alone just in that package. The internal construction is the same as the Allround range of boards. You still have a drop stitch and kernel core with double layers of PVC wrapped around the outside of the board, but it's definitely the fittings and features that are a little bit more refined on the Allround advanced range. The bag is still the same, so you're getting a good bag with the Allround range, and you still get the same bag with the advanced Allround range, and you still get the basic Sports 3 paddle with those packages and the basic leash as well. And some of you may have noticed that the D-rings are placed in the EVA deck pads this year that the Allround advanced range and the Allround range have now, so you can attach kayak seat attachments that you will have to buy separately, but you can fit them on your boards. Just like the cheaper Allround range, the Allround advanced range has got bigger sizes in the range as well. They still have the golden nugget board, which is the board that pretty much most people are going to be wanting. The Aqua Marina Beast, which is the 10.6 by 32, but they also have one smaller and some bigger, wider sizes in there as well, which are going to be great for multi-people, maybe playing around with the family, or heavier paddlers. And the smaller coral board, which is 10.2 by 31, is definitely a good eye-catching board. They're definitely pushing it a little bit more towards the female side of the paddling market, but I personally really like the look of that board. And because that board is only 4.75 inches thick, it really is going to be better for the lighter paddlers, 75 kg and down. It's going to give you a better paddling experience. You're going to feel less out of the water. Maybe it might be better for lighter people giving yoga a go, or a bit of SUP fitness. Definitely that sort of board is going to suit a lot of those paddlers. Before we move on to the other boards, some more information about probably the most popular board in the range, which is the Aqua Marina Beast 10.6 by 32. So this is your golden size. Definitely we get more questions about this board compared to other boards in the market than any other board. This board weighs 8.42 kilograms or 18.52 pounds. It's a recommended retail price of 499 euros, and we actually picked this board to put into our deflection test, which is where we put it on a gap of 1.5 meters apart, and we put a weight of 75 kilograms in the center of the board, and then we measure how much the board bends or deflects. Now, this has a recommended PSI pressure of 15, and at that pressure it dropped 19 millimeters, which is pretty much the same as previous Aqua Marina boards that we have tested. In the past, we were pumping them up to 18 PSI, but this year they have a recommended PSI pressure of 15 PSI. So it isn't the stiffest board on the market. A quick recap: stiffness of the boards, the most expensive and the stiffest boards in the market sit about 7, and the most bendiest boards you don't really want to paddle sit around mid 25s. So it's comfortable, not as stiff as the more expensive boards, but it sits in the deflection where we think it should sit in the market. So now let's move on to the Hyper, the touring boards in the Aqua Marina range. Now this board has had a change in shape. The previous Hyper they had by 31 and 32, which they have exactly the same size this year, but they have widened the tail out on the Hyper. Last year the shape was much more pulled in towards the tail. It did make the board a little bit faster, but it made it much more technical to use and turn around the back of the board. So by them increasing the width of the back of the tail, you're going to get a lot more stability there. Another thing that they've done is they've increased the size of the front bungees, loads of D-rings up there, so you've got massive amount of cargo. They still have their rear bungees, you've got the better deck pad like you have with the Allround Advanced range, you've got the same pump, the same good bag, and now you get a good quality coiled leash with that package as well. So they are really trying to help people, encourage people to paddle further, and that very much is the new Aqua Marina slogan for this year. One that is all around, trying to get you to paddle out of your comfort zone, go around the next corner and explore a new place on your paddleboard. The Hyper is definitely a board that we'd like to see in a standalone review personally, and it's going to be good to put this in the SUPboarder Pro inflatable touring test that we will be doing this spring, where we put it up against all the other best inflatable touring boards on the market, because this is a cheaper price point touring board, and if you want to get into touring, this sort of board is a very good board to be looking at. And of course, this is the only double chamber board in the range, which is where you have an internal chamber that you inflate, and then you also inflate the external chamber. Good move, Aqua Marina here. They've put the internal chamber valve at the back of the board, so then when you do deflate the board, it's a little bit easier to roll up. So we notice small things like that Aqua Marina have changed. It does show that they've listened to us, listened to you guys out there, and they have changed what the feedback they've received and made the boards better in 2021. And lastly, new changes on their 2021 race boards. This is still a 14x27, and they still have a 12.6x27 as well in their range. Prices start for the smaller 12.6 at €649. You're still getting the good quality bag you get with all of the other packages. You still get the version 2 pump that you get with the Hyper and the Allround Advanced range of boards, and you get a coiled leash that you get with the Hyper as well. And both the Hyper and the race board come with a nice swept back race slide-in clip fin. EVA deck pads upgrade, the graphics are changed, the handles are nice, the kick pad is really big and chunky. You've got a water release edge at the back, just like you had in last year's board. Big changes are they've given you a quadruple stringer this year, so they've put 2 lines of PVC extra along the top and the bottom of the board to increase the stiffness. They say that's increased the stiffness by 5%. We haven't put this in our test yet, but we would like to maybe do a standalone review on this one in the future. Let us know if you think this board should be one of the SUPboarder standalone reviews. Another thing that they've changed as well, they've moved their fin box further forward on the board. Now what that does for you racers out there, you might know, but if you're getting into racing, if you move your fin box further forward on the board, it makes you be able to pivot and turn your board much easier. The downside to moving your fin further forward on your board is that you will make your straight line tracking not as good. You'll increase your turning, but your straight line tracking will suffer. Because these are longer race boards, 14, 12.6, with a long parallel outside edge, they do have a good amount of straight line tracking anyway. So actually having this fin further forward on a long slender board like this does make it a lot easier to turn, and it means you haven't got to get so far back to pivot the fin around when you're doing those buoy turns. Another big thing they've added this year is they've had a raised EVA side to their deck pad around the standing area of the board. That means you can put your feet up against it and use it as a reference point so you don't slip off the side of the board. Lots of other race boards have got it. It's sort of come from the hard composite world of racing, where you're in a more dug out, recessed part of your board. And it is a nice feature to see, definitely again on a cheaper price point race up. Other things that are definitely worth noting in the 2021 range, Aqua Marina now have a triple action pump in their range. It's produced from GRI, which is one of the best pump manufacturers in the world. It's got 3 settings to get the most air in your board as possible. So if you're looking at getting a better pump, Aqua Marina now have that pump in their range as well. Moving on to paddles, with all of the boards as the packages, you still get the basic Sports 3 paddle. It has a bit more refinement in the blade shape, but it's a nylon blade and an aluminium shaft. It's a 3-piece paddle. The clamp and the top section has been slightly more refined than previous years. These paddles are great for getting you on the water first time, but definitely when you get into a little bit more performance paddling and you're trying to put a bit more power into your stroke, you really should be looking for a paddle with more fiberglass shaft or a more carbon shaft. So from there you can then move on to the carbon guide, which is a nylon plastic blade similar to the Sports 3 cheaper paddle, but it has a carbon shaft which gives you that much more stiffness. That's definitely the paddle you want to be looking towards if you're going to be paddling maybe more than once a month. Something that's just going to make your paddling way more efficient, and definitely after a day's paddling you will be thankful that you upgraded for the better paddle. If you want to keep going up from there, definitely looking at the paddles with the full carbon or the carbon glass blades are the way forward. You get a much more refined shape, they're much more efficient in the water. Again, the shafts are stiffer because they've got a higher percentage of carbon in them as well, and they are just a lighter paddle to use. So when you are swinging the paddle in and out of the water, putting it back in for your front stroke, it's just going to be a lot less effort on your shoulders, and therefore you are going to be able to paddle longer, further, and it's not going to feel so tiring at the end of your day's paddling. It's really nice to see that both the Carbon X and the Carbon Pro have got a more refined blade shape this year. The better pulled in slender blade is much better at not working your shoulders as much as the older Aqua Marina carbon paddles were. Having the V-shaped in the center does hold and cup the water better. It means that you haven't actually got to be so efficient with your paddle stroke to get the most out of your paddle. It basically keeps your paddle more planted in the water. So it's nice that they've changed and added those shapes onto the Carbon X and the Carbon Pro this year. The Carbon Pro is the 3-piece version and the Carbon X is a 2-piece version. Both going to have pros and cons for different people. So I'll finish off now with some pros and cons from us. It's really good to see some better sizes, bigger sizes in the all-round range and the advanced all-round range. There are so many people that seem to miss out of buying a cheaper price point board because they can't paddle it being 100, 110, 115 kilos. So they have got these bigger, wider boards that are going to be much better for the heavier paddlers, or for putting maybe the kids and dogs on the front as well. They still have good amount of boards for the smaller paddlers. The graphics in general are better again. It's really good that you get to see a good quality pump from GRI in the all-round advanced range, and they offer the triple action GRI pump as well. Paddles have definitely improved a lot. Features and fittings have improved. Generally, it's nice to see a good progression with 2021 and Aqua Marina. And cons, definitely we would like to see less plastic in the packaging when we're unpacking all these boards. We have a lot of plastic to then try and get into various types of recycling, and they're not always the easiest products to recycle. So it'd be really great to see more paper in the packaging when we unpack all these boards. Another thing about stiffness and recommended PSI pressure, Aqua Marina recommend 15 PSI. All their boards except their race board, which is 18 PSI, but it would be nice if they recommended 18 to 20 PSI on all of their boards. So then people have the option of getting more air in their board and making them even stiffer. And again, for the heavier base paddlers, that's something that would really help them get more performance out of their paddleboard. But apart from that, and looking at value for money, you can't really quibble too much about the price points of all of these boards. Whether you want to get into racing for the first time, become a SUP tourer, buy your very first cheaper based all-round board, or buy something that's going to take you a little bit further, you have got a good range of paddleboards. So I hope you found that overview of the new products in Aqua Marina for 2021 useful and interesting. If you'd like to see us review any standalone boards from the Aqua Marina 2021 range, please get them in the comments below or send us a message on SUPboarder. Thank you very much for watching. Give this video a like if you found it useful. If you haven't checked out SUPboarder Mag already, there's loads of SUP content on there, and obviously SUPboarder Pro is the SUP content you don't find on YouTube. There's twice as many videos on there as there is on YouTube you're watching now. Whether you're watching this on SUPboarder or on YouTube, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time with another video.